So we are lucky the live streaming is working. So we'll start. So we are done till the verse number, if you remember, verse number 10, we had done it. Now we were trying to establish why the Atma is Parananda Rupa, right? Why it is that Satchidananda Rupa, Satchit Ananda. So the Parananda Rupa, the Ananda Rupata was established in the verse number 10. And what was the yukti for this? He's saying because it is Parama Premaspada. It is most lovable. And we had referred to the Shruti Vakyas in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where Yajnavalkya is kindly mute all of you, my sincere request. Because, yeah, so whosoever is there, you must mute yourselves. Yeah. So we had discussed that anybody, whatever you want it not because it is in itself good or it's pure, it's desirable. Because this is going to give you happiness that you want a car or a house, a name or fame or any relationship. Yajnavalkya explains that, and we had a long discussion in it in the last class as to how whatever a person loves or wants to have, he's saying, Saho vacha nava arepatyuho kamaya pratihi priyo bhavati atmanastu kamaya pratihi priyo bhavati. Even a wife doesn't want a husband because the husband in itself is desirable because it is good for herself. And in the end, he says, so try to understand, Atmava are drashtavya, shrutavya, mantavyo, nididha, sitabyo. Therefore, it's the self that on which one needs to meditate, wants to hear, wants to contemplate on that. Why? That is the key to getting Amritattva, for which Yajnavalkya is going to set out on his journey inwards. And that is why the verse number 9, the 10th, finally, he's saying that. And that Brahma and Jiva are avirna. This Atma is verily same as the Paramatma Rupa. The Jivatma, Paramatma are verily one. But Upati Vedas, because names and forms, as we have discussed again and again, same space inside your room and my room seem different, but it's just one space. We are just trying to circumscribe, we are trying to sort of delimit its scope by giving it a certain adjective. It remains the same universal sky. Similarly, Atma is one, and then Param Brahma Tayoscha Aikyam Shrutyante Upadishate Dishyate Yante Vedante Shruti Ante Shrutyante. That is how we had concluded the verse number 10. Now, there is a doubt that comes here. So, Atmanaha Paramananda Rupatve Vipratipatim Asankhya Pariharati. Now you're saying that it is Paramanandatva Rupa. But is it visible? Do we get it? Is it obvious? If it's not obvious, there is a doubt. What are the shortfalls? If it's you are advising that we need to meditate on the Atma Tattva, the doubt is, why should I meditate on it? Is it evident that it is the source of ultimate bliss to me? That must be clear to me. It becomes clear to me, then would I be interested in samsara at all? If a person is able to see the Atma Tattva, is he able to live a normal life? Is it possible for him? So this is a beautiful philosophical paradox, the kind of contradiction which defines our human predicament here, and that is being used to explain as to why the Paramaspadatva of Atma, the most lovable nature of the Atmana, the self, is not easily available to our senses or to our minds. It's not easy for us to grasp this. And that in a way, defines our predicament, but also makes it very interesting that we are being able to live a normal life. We are still here. Atma Tattva is there. The texts, the scriptures, the wise men and women around us, those who have already left or still around who are doing sadhana, they keep telling us that it is Satchidananda Rupa. The mystics, for example, would tell us, and there's a lot of interesting research right now going on in different Western universities, and people who are otherwise very rationalistic, scientific in their attitude are slowly discovering that there is an experience of the wholeness of human consciousness which far exceeds the limits of our rational mind. There is much more to our human experience than what is available to us as intellectual experience. That, in a way, provides the context for our spiritual quest. We need not be frightened about it. Now look at the verse number 11. It's very, very interesting. Abhanena parang prema bhanena vishaye spriha ato bhanepya bhatasau paramananda tatmanaha. Abhani na param prema. How can it be parama premaspada if it is not visible to us, it's not evident to us? And if in case bhane, in case it becomes evident, no vishaya spruha. If you know Atma is Sachidananda Swarupa and you are that, would you be interested in anything in the samsara? Would you be interested to do your job? Value your relationship with your children, your wife, your friends, your society, the immediate social circles, any economic activity that you value right now? Ataha, then he's saying, bhanepi. Even though actually it's available for the ones who are sharp-eyed, not the physical eyes, but those who are insightful, for them it is accessible. However, it's not very visible at the same time. Also atma, nabhata, abhata, it's invisible. Even though it's available, it's invisible. Paramanandata atmanaha. This paramanandata or paranandata, that ultimate blissful nature of the self, even though, yes, it exists, it's there, it becomes visible at the deepest level of our meditation, in moments of our mystic epiphany, when we suddenly jump out of the limited space in which we are standing, which we describe as our life, as our world, as our world view, or our life world, as they call it in German. Die Weltanschauung, your life world. You suddenly jump out of it, as if it's presenting you a very limited cage. It's like it's a limited cell in which you are trapped. You jump out of it. At moment of that, it's not a very epistemic breaking out. It is a mystic breaking away from what you describe as your reality. You break free from what is your reality to sort of, it's like swimming in an ocean of bliss, which is not visible to the eyes. It's not visible to the five senses. But suddenly you access the passcode to get into that infinite joy, joyful experience. And he's saying, therefore, that Atma's Paramanandata, even though it is actually available, provided we are at that level to access it, but it's generally not available. It's contradictory in nature. It's a kind of paradoxical situation. Let's look at the commentary, how they beautifully explain it. Paramananda Rupatvam Abhana iti, the commentary Ramakrishna Tika, Paramananda Rupatvam na bhasate bhasate va. You would ask this question that this blissful nature of the self, is it visible or it's not visible? Is it open to our experience? Is it open to our anubhuti, that we can actually sense it, or it's not? Abhane apratitau, if it's not visible, if it's not evident to us, na param prema atmani niritisaya sneho na syat. If it's not there, is anybody ever interested in something which is non-existence? If something doesn't exist, you're sure it doesn't exist. Would you be interested in it? If for sure you know it doesn't exist, you shall never ever have any curiosity about it, because nobody is ever interested in anything which absolutely doesn't exist. But please understand that please don't pull this discussion towards the Mula Madhyamika Karika sort of Sunyavad of Buddhist non-existence, because that itself, so far, Vedanta is kind of a Vava Padartha. They also talk about Buddha nature. So they deny existence of everything because everything is interdependent. They have another approach. They are non-dual. They are non-dual like Vedantists, but they approach it through annata, non-self. What they call non-self, we call it non-ego self. That is the difference. And what they call shunyata, we call it purnata. But I will not enter into that debate. That's another journey altogether. Similar end, wisdom, but there's a different way in which we approach that reality. Here what he's saying that if Atma is not evidently blissful, nobody would be interested, because it's not going to give you that niratisaya sneha, parama prema spadata cannot be proved or established. Right? Why? Vishaya saundarya jnana janyatvat snehasya. Now you are very fond of, you just imagine that you are a grandfather and you have 5, 6 grandchildren. You are very fond of one grandchild because she is very cute. She sings very well. Or you are a professor and you have about 30 students in your class, but there is one boy or girl you appreciate. You are very fond of that student. And why? Because that student is very sharp, very insightful, and comes with very bright example, asks you sharp questions. Vishaya saundarya jnana. You have that object of your perception, and it has beauty, it has attraction, either intellectual beauty or it's physical beauty. It's for you to decide what attracts you. But if it's a rose, if it's a beautiful girl, or it's a very handsome person, or it's somebody who has great quality, that jnana is happening to you, jnana janyatvad, and then it produces in you a sense of attraction, affinity, inclination, or even bias towards that person or that particular poem or that book. Because of that jnana, that it has quality, it has that beauty, that you feel attracted. Now, if you cannot even know whether it exists, how do you know about its beauty or its attractiveness? And why should you at all have any feeling of love or appreciation for it? So you will not have any appreciation for the Atma. It cannot be parama premaspada. If in any case you cannot even establish that it is there or it's not visible to you. That is the first part. Now let's imagine that actually if it's visible, what happens? You should be happy, right? Then you can love it. Then he's explaining. Bhane pratitau tu vishaye sukha sadhane sragadau tajjanye shukheva spruha icha na syada. Bhane, if actually that Atma Tattva becomes evident to you as nicely, as clearly as you can see a pen or a pencil or a person or a rose, you can see it with your naked eyes. Or even through your mind, you can very well all the time see that particular Paramaspada Atma before your eyes or before your mind. Then what happens? Bhane, if that's so, if it appears, pratito to vishaye, what about this material reality around you? Vishaye sukha sadhane, you feel that happiness in you. And what is the sukha sadhana? I'm not talking about niratisaya sukha, but satisaya sukha. Like if you have an ice cream in your mouth, you feel good. If somebody gifts you the latest model of a car or an iPhone or anything that you value, you feel good. That is the sukha sadhana, means of your happiness. Sukha sadhana sragado. Srag is a beautiful lotus garland or rose garland, whatever, a flower bouquet. Srag is a mala, a garland. Sragado tajjanye shukheva, or somebody garlands you. They appreciate you, they welcomed you in a particular meeting in India. Garlands are very much in use. So you feel appreciated, you feel glorified. So sukheva spahana ichasyat, why? Already you are having that parama premaspada atma jnana. It's clearly, easily visible to your eyes. Would you be interested in a flower garland or the latest model of a car or anything. A nice holiday program, would you be interested? No. Phala prapto satyam sadhane ichha anupapattehe. If phala prapti is already there, if somebody can give you a doctorate, would you be sitting in the libraries and slogging for hours over weeks and months and years to write your thesis and get a PhD? Oh, no, if somebody is going to give you a PhD just like that, you will not be interested. Phala prapto satyami. Phala prapti is quickly done in front of you. Sadhana ichha anupapattehe. Why should you be interested to fulfill the means to go towards that phala prapti, to reach that conclusion, which is that experience of happiness? Because it is happening just like that, because you have niratisaya anandatmaka, that atmajnana. Nitya niratisaya Ananda labhe sati. If you can have nitya niratisaya ananda in you, that ineffable joy, kshanike sadhana paratantrayadi dosha dushite vishayike shukhe spriha ayogacha. If you can have that niratisaya ananda, you are always in that state of ineffable joy. You shall not ever be interested in kshanika, temporary, transient, which are passing in nature. Those sorts of upayas or means towards anandas which are also temporary. That means your life becomes in a way irrelevant to you. You would like to, you'll just enter into a state of meditation. It's like a philosophical euthanasia. I would like to abandon this body because your senses are the means to experiencing happiness. Bhogayatanam sariram. And then these are the means, right? These are the upayas for experiencing bhoga. So these are bhoga upakaranas or karanas for experiencing that bhoga. Both become irrelevant. Spruha ayogacha tasmat, therefore, ananda rupata atmanaha upapanna iti prakantara anyatra sambhavat ma evamiti pariharati. Then how do you establish paramanandata of atmana? Is there any other proof? Can you do any other way you can establish it except for Shruti? Through experience, there's any other way? He's saying, no, it's not possible. Therefore, he's saying, ataha, and he's saying, ataha bhanepi abhanaso, abhataso. Even though it's visible, it's actually prakasha swarupa. Even then, it's not easily visible to you. Yataha atma bhana pakshayor. Atma either is bhana paksha or abhana paksha. Is visible or invisible. Both the ways you are having problem. If you can establish Atma is visible, you will not be interested in living this life on earth. And if Atma, that Paramanandata of Atma is absolutely not visible, absolutely not knowable, then why should you be interested in it? Why should you be reading? Why should you be doing meditation and reading Vedanta? Sastra anarthakya prasanga. That is how Shankaracharya explains. It will become nirarthaka. There will be no meaning whatsoever left in reading of the Upanishads or Shrutis or doing yoga, meditation. Why? There is no Atmajnana. It's not to be experienced at all. It doesn't exist. Therefore, he is saying, ataha karanad atmanaha aso paramanandata bhanepi pratito satyam api abhata na pratita bhavati. Therefore, it's like as if this contradictory nature of the self is kind of a given. This is there because in a way it is making life livable at a certain level. At the same time, it also provides a ground, a justification through the Shrutis for us to explore the spiritual nature ourselves. Those who cannot see it are happy to live our lives. Just imagine, does God exist? You go to any theologian. Those who believe, those who are theists, they would see God exists. Then you ask them, why are you doing anything else? If the supreme consciousness, supreme self is available before your eyes, then how can you do anything? You remember this unpopular essays by Broughton Russell. He makes fun of Christian beliefs because he is a rationalist. And he writes somewhere that It's very funny that these Christian nuns and these fathers, especially the nuns, who go to the bathrooms and they would not take their clothes off because God is watching them. And you think if God is watching them in the bathroom, he could jolly well be entering into the gowns. Why can't he see them beneath the gowns? What are they trying to hide from God? So, he always makes fun of belief system because he was a philosophical atheist in a very nice, enlightened sense. And there are quite a few like that who don't believe in it. And then there are agnostics or agnostics, and there are different categories, different layers in which we try to connect with what is considered to be divine. Some people believe in something which is paranormal or supernatural reality. They would not like to call themselves as theists in the normal sense of the term, and yet they would like to explore that superhuman, supernormal state of consciousness. Many of them are scientists these days, or they could be in psychoanalysis, or they could be doing anything, and they would like to have some time and attention left to explore the beyond. And that is what this particular shloka mentions. To me, this particular thing is a beautiful shloka, beautiful verse, which in a way explains our predicament right now. Now, we'll go to the next verse. If actually Atma exists, why can't we see this? He's saying even though bhanepi abhataso, no, it's visible, but it's not visible. So what prevents it from being so clearly evident to all of us? And that is explained in the next verse, verse number 12. Nanu ekasya yugapat bhana bhane. Yugapat means at the same time, bhana and abhana, bhana bhane are both possible at the same time. Na yujyete, it's not possible. Iti ashankya, because he's having this doubt. Kim idam ayuktatvam, what is this illogicality of it? Adrishtacharatvam, it's not seen before, or anupapatti, or upapatti rahitatvam va, or it's illogical, it's absence of logic in it, va. No adya ityaha, he's explaining this. He will give you an example where actually it's not that it's absolutely not visible. The Atma is absolutely not invisible. But at the same time, it's absolutely not definitely visible. Mark my words, it's very interesting. There's nothing original about what I'm trying to tell you because it's mentioned here. The Atman is visible. We are sensing it. But we cannot know it for sure the way we are looking at this computer screen when I'm communicating with you, or you are listening to me. Samanyataha, in very simple terms, you are being able to listen to whatever I'm saying. I'm looking at the computer screen, I can see the participants who are taking part in the satsang. In a similar manner, the Atma is not obvious to me. However, at the same time, I am not denying its presence because I still feel its presence. And then you would ask me, can you give me a good example of it? And therefore, he's giving a very good example here in the verse number 12. Adhyatra vargam adhyasta putra dhyayana sabdavat bhanepya bhanam bhanasya pratibandhena yujyate adhyatra vargam adhyasta. The example is like this. Because obviously this is a text written by a member of the intellectual elite of India at that point of time. And then what was the intellectual system there? We're talking about the Veda Vidyalayas. That was the pedagogical system here. So the student goes, and then what they do first is that they will do Veda Patha, the Ucharanam, for a few years, at least 12 years. They master all the texts. No books are required. They remember everything. And then the teacher will explain to them verse by verse. That is the next level of contemplation on different verses. The first thing is they will do Ucharanam. And the teacher pronounces a certain shloka. He also is not holding any books. He pronounces it and others repeat it. And they do it hundreds and hundreds of times to be able to remember it. So Adhyata Madhyastha. So there are a bunch of young little boys who are chanting the Vedas. Putra Adhyayana Savadavat. And the father is going to say hello to the son after a couple of months. Those days, the children were kind of packed off, handed over to the teachers in the Gurukulams. And the Gurukula, the children will be taken care of by their teachers and their wives, teachers' wives, the Guru Matas. I was listening to somebody who's very interesting. You're saying that there were certain parts of India, especially in Orissa, during the rainy season, the teacher used to, wherever there is a little heavy rain, he'll say, go back home, because there was a river which sort of was in between the school and the children coming from the nearby villages. It'd say, go home, because if there's a spate in the river, the children cannot go home. It's just about 30, 40 years back. And that old person is telling them what happens. The government school teacher, this is of this Kali Yuga only, but such good people did exist. Then he has to take all these children who cannot cross over the river, because the river is in spate, it is his responsibility. So he takes all these children to his house. Maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 children, whatever. And then who cooks for them? His wife. Who did they eat with? His children. Where do they sleep? With whatever limited space he has. He has to take care of his own children and school children who cannot cross over the river to go to their respective villages. The teachers were so good. Now, similarly here, his son, somebody is going to meet his son. The son is sitting amongst a few other boys in the Gurukulam, which is somebody's residence. Could be his courtyard or his garden. And then below a tree, maybe children are chanting. And the father is approaching them. He knows my son is part of this group of children who are chanting the Vedas. Putra Adhyana Savadavat. And he can listen to it. He can guess that my son is also chanting, but he cannot clearly listen to the voice of his son. He knows my son is there, but he cannot prove to you that, where is your son? He said, my son is there. He's there with maybe his brother-in-law or a friend of his. So your son studies in the school, in this Veda Vidyalaya? Yes. So what is he doing? No, he's chanting right now. I can't hear him. He cannot say, actually, his son is there or not. Bhanepi avhanam bhanasya. Even though actually is there, he is listening to the sound, the voice of his son. Avhanam bhanasya. It's not his invisibility of what is visible, but imperceptibility of what is perceptible to the ears. Pratibandhena yujyate. Why does that happen? Because there are certain pratibandhaka. There's some obstruction. There is some kind of an obstacle for a clear perception of the reality of the self. Abstract? No, it's not abstract. All that he's trying to say is, even though you're listening to the sound of your son's voice, you're not being able to distinguish it from the sound of the voices of other children who are also sitting there and who are doing the Vedic chanting. That is as simple as that. Let's look at how he explains it. Adhyayinam Veda Pathakanam Varagaha Samuhasya. And then there is a bunch of students, a collective of students, Veda Pathakanam Varagaha Samuha. That is a collective of young little boys sitting and chanting the Vedas. Tasya Madhye, in that collective, in the middle of it, Tishtati iti Adhyatra Varga Madhyastaha. Adhyatra Varga Madhyastha, that compound word, he's breaking it into parts and explaining, the Tikakara, the commentator. Tishtati iti, he's sitting there in that collective of young boys. Sacha aso putrasya iti tatha. Adhyastha Varga Madhyastha Putra. Up till now he's explaining. My son is one of these little boys who are sitting and chanting the Vedas. Tasya adhyayanam tat kartrikam patanam. So that guy is also chanting. That means he is the karta. As an agent of that sound which is being produced in the form of chanting, tasya savdo dhvanihi, that sound of the chanting by his son. Yatha bahistasya, that bahista means who is slightly outside that collective. His father cannot enter into the school boundary. He's standing at the boundary of the school and he can overhear. He faintly recognizes his son and yet he cannot say this is my son's voice because it's a collective, and it's a collective voice that he can hear. Bahistasya pituhu, of the father who is standing outside, bhasamana, that sabda is bhasamana, is perceptible even then. Samanyataha, bhasamanepi samanyataha, generally is available to the ears, he can hear. Na bhasate vishesataha, specifically it's not evident to his ears. Vishesataha na bhasate. Ayam mat putra dhvanihi iti. What is that vishesha dhvani? This is the sound of my son's voice. That's not evident to him. Tatha anandasyapi. This is the drishtanta, the example. Now we are coming to the prakarana, the particular context in which we are discussing it. We are returning to the context of Paramananda Spatatva or Paramananda Rupata of the Tatha Anandasyapi, that Paramanandasya Atmanaha Paramanandatayaha is what? Api Bhanepi Avhanam Bhavati Ityarthaha. Samanyataha Bhanam Bhavati Eva. In general, it's perceptible. You sense it. Yes, there is something called Atma. However, Visheshata Bhanam na Bhavati. And yet, there is no perceptible, evident perceptibility of this is not available to you. Dityam Pratyaha. And Ditya, what he's saying, is it not logical? He's saying, Bhanasya iti. No, it's not illogical. Why that happens, you have to explain it logically. He's saying, Bhanepi Avhanam iti etad atrapi anusanjaniyam. Bhanepi Avhanam. You have to again add it in the last part of that thing. Pratibandhena yudhanasya pratibandhena bhanasya bhanepi avhanam iti pratibandhena yujyate. You have to look at the pratibandhaka to make sense of why, despite being perceptible, it's not evidently perceptible. He's saying, bhanasya sphurnasya, that which is actually showing, shining, pratibandhena bhakshamana lakshanena. Because that pratibandhena bhakshamana is there, but it's not very clear to you. Bhanepi avhanam samanyataha pratito api. In general, you can see it. Specifically, you can't. Visheshakarena apratitihi yujyate. Visheshakara apratitihi, samanyakara pratitihi, they go together. In general, you know, deeply you do not know. That is there all the time. Upapadyate ityarthaha. That is how he's explaining why if somebody tomorrow asks us as to Atma hai nahi hai, is it there, it's not there, if it's there, do you know it, where is it, can you show it to us? No, in the preliminary level, we do all somewhere make sense of the fact that there is a self or there is a reality beyond it. If you're a Buddhist, you will say, no, I'm not interested to talk about the Atma. Okay, let's talk about Anatma. Let's talk about the Shunya. Still, you will have to prove its existence. So there is something called Shunya. Okay, fine. And how do you prove it? That nothing exists. He's saying that Bhana, Avhana, this particular thing will be common to both, because both Buddhists and the Vedantists talk about two truths. There are two, the Vyavaharika and the Paramarthika. And they add another, Pratibhashika, which is there during, you have a faulty perception, erroneous perception. Right, the rope looks like a snake. In that kind of thing is pratibhasika. Vyavaharika is what is verifiable, jagrata avasthaya. And then you have what is paramarthataha, that is you have that advaita ananda sthiti. Koso pratibandhaha, somebody will say, pratibandhena yujyate. So there is some kind of an obstacle as a result of which you cannot fully perceive it. Fine, explain to me that obstacle. Then he's explaining in the next verse. Pratibandhosti bhatiti vyavahararha vastuni tang nirasya viruddhasya tasyotpadanamuchyate. He's saying that what is that pratibandhaka is something which is a contradictory perception of what you generally you perceive Atma is there. But you will have another negative perception. You will say, no, it doesn't. Where is it? Where do you see it? That kind of thing he's explaining. Pratibandha, what is that pratibandha? Asti bhati. It exists and it shines. Asti It is there, bhati prakashate. It is there and I can feel it. Asti bhati iti vyavahararha vastuni. Asti and bhati. It is there and it is visible, or I can see it. That particular object which deserves this. Vyavahararha. Like, for example, if you are in a state of deep sleep, or you're seeing a snake in a rope, asti bhati, after some time that is negated. There are a lot of things which you might think it exists, but you have no evident vision of it. But like you are seeing a computer screen in front of you during this satsang. You see it's asti and bhati. But for some reason, if you start doubting it, that becomes that particular pratibandhaka. That what deserves that asti bhati iti vyavahara in that vastu, tam nirasya, if you deny it, viruddhasya tasya utpadanam uchyate. You have exactly an opposite conclusion about it. That is the kind of pratibandhaka here. Because you see, in the drishtanta he had given, that you have a son who is chanting, and because he is in a collective, you are not being able to recognize it. But in case of Atma, that example directly may or may not apply. That's just an example. You will not have 100% equivalence of that particular example when we are going to the subject matter that you're trying to explain. So as that difficulty, I tell you that difficulty always remain, because we are looking at the samsara, which requires the five senses and the mind. And we are talking about that Atma Tattva, which is beyond the reach of these five senses and the mind. Abang Manashovochara. So it's like I was talking to a doctor a long time back. He was a wonderful person in one of the Apollo hospitals. And my father had passed away. And he said, do you know what the limitation of we doctors? I said, what? He said, never ever confuse a human being with a machine. In a car or a bus, you can replace any part and it's going to run again. You can even replace the engine. It'll look the same. That's not so about human beings, because they are organically composed. You cannot replace everything and then say, yeah, everything is going on as the same person. You cannot say that. There are a lot of ethical questions. And then there's a deeper problem that he was mentioning, that, all of us who do dissection of dead bodies when we are students, and then we are treating living bodies. Our education is with the help of dead bodies, mostly corpses, postmortems, this, that, how they work. Then we are dealing with something. He said the science of healing is not taught to us, it's beyond us. We are all very good. He was a nephrologist, a wonderful person, very spiritual. And he was explaining to us, this is the limitation of our science. Now, we do not know, because healing is a spiritual, it's a creative process. How a body heals, that I don't know. I just know why there is a disease, and this medicine you give, you stop the negative narrative that it is subjected to, and you expect that it heals. Similarly, about Atma Tattva, as students of Vedanta, we are trying to deal with something which is beyond all of us, with the help of categories and words and examples of our everyday lives. So you will always have a bit of logical difficulty, but you have to be patient. So here he's saying, Asti bhati iti vyavahararha vastuni. Asti and bhati iti vyavahara. That it is there and prakashate. In that kind of asti means vidyate, bhati means prakasate. It exists and prakasate. It's also visible to me. Ityeva pakaram vyavaharam arhati iti asti bhati vyavahararha. That it is there and it is visible. That particular object of perception which deserves this kind of vyavahara, tacha tadvastu cha iti tatha tasmin, in that particular vastuni, in that vastu, tang purvoktam vyavaharam nirasya, asti bhati iti vyavaharam nirasya. It is there and it is perceptible. That is at one level of your perception. And suddenly you nirakritya viruddhasya nasti na bhati rupasya. Then you say, no. Where is Atma? And where do you see it? So the same mind in a deep meditative state, this is a very common problem with all Vedanta satsangs. And one person is saying, yeah, Vedanta satsang is very good. So every time I sit in a Vedanta satsang, I deeply believe that there is Atma and that we should meditate on it. And that samsara is essentially ephemeral in nature, it's transient, it's passing in nature. And we are victims, we are kind of prisoners here. You know, I keep going back to that beautiful song, Hotel California, that you can check out, but you can never get out of that place. You can check in, but there's no going back to this samsara. That is the kind of predicament of a normal rationalistic mind. We are trapped in the samsara. He's saying the moment you leave the Vedanta satsang and then we go back to our lives and life starts, then we forget about all this. That is the prativandhaka. Asti bhati, that particular experience you are having when we are doing meditation on the Vedantic truths, and then we get back to the samsara, you open the TV channel after the satsang, or you go for dinner, you talk to somebody, you argue with somebody. Where is Vedanta? That is saying, nasti na bhati ityevam rupasya vyavaharasya utpadanam jananam. Then we have exact opposite conclusion emerging out of another way of describing it as non-existence and non-evident. That is what is prativandha iti uchyate. And he will explain it further in a beautiful way when we're going for the next verse, in the verse number 14. We'll try to do it before we conclude. We have another 5-10 minutes. Why so? Again, go to the drishtanta or the example. The sun is chanting the Vedas, or maybe let's imagine, forget about chanting Vedas, you might say. Let's have something contemporary. He's a singer, is part of a choir. There's a group of people, okay? He's performing, he's going to sing as part of a choir. His voice, his father knows my son is singing. Sometimes he feels, I can hear my son. And a father, mother, they're standing outside. And the wife says, could you hear our boy is singing? The father says, really? Yeah, but he just tries to make his wife happy. He says, yes, I can hear. He can't. After 5 minutes, he can hear. The wife isn't being able to hear. These things happen. Okay. Why does that happen? Gives a beautiful example. Let's go to the verse number 14. Ukta lakshanasya prativandhasya. The definition of that prativandha, you have asti bhati the vyavahara, and then tan nirasya, rejecting it. Suddenly you have a vyavahara, he's saying nasti na bhati. No, it's not there. It's not evident to me. The same person in a satsang says asti bhati, and beyond satsang says, no, what is atma? It doesn't exist. What nonsense. He turns hostile. He's a witness who turns hostile after the Upanishad class. Similarly, that is the prativandha, is given an example how that happens. Ukta lakshanasya prativandhasya karanam drishtanta drashtantika kramena darshayati. He gives the drishtanta, the example, and the drashtantika, the subject matter that we're discussing, how that works out. Tasya hetuhu samanabhi haraha putra dhvani shrutau ihanadira vidyeva vyamoheka nivandhanam. Tasya hetuhu. Why this prativandha happens? No one to be blamed. Why can't he evidently say, my son is singing and I can hear his voice? What is the cause? He's saying, I'll explain to you. The example, the reason is samana aviharaha, samana viharaha. And samana viharaha is a kind of a technical term. We'll have a discussion on it. Putra dhoni shrutau, because the intermingling of the sounds of the voice, there are 20 boys and girls singing, right? Your child is just one of them. And there's this intermingling and mixing up of the voices of all these students who are singing as part of the choir or that Veda Adhyayana. So he is being able to listen to his son, whose voice is mixed up with the voice of others. Iha anadi avidya eva. Why does it get mixed up, my dear? He's coming to Drashtantika. Why this Atma, which is actually asti bhati vyavahara yogya, which deserves the vyavahara of asti and bhati? Yes, it exists and it's evident. Why do we say nasti na bhati? He's saying, Iha anadi avidya eva. This is beginning, this is ignorance, has no beginning. This is ignorance without a beginning. Anadi vidya. Bhagavan Bhashyakar says one of the most beautiful sentences in the Adhyasa Bhashya of the Brahma Sutras. Naisargikoyam loka vyavaharaha. The nature of the jada is superimposed on the nature of the Atma, and the nature of the Atma is superimposed, like I am Sukhi, I am Dukhi. It's a beautiful, we'll enter into the Adhyasa page, we'll move forward slowly, it will come in some context. He says, Naisargikoyam loka vyavahara. It doesn't have any beginning. This is how it happens, this confusion. All the time happens. Then, Vyamohika Nivandhanam, that Vyamoho, that inability to see the truth, is caused by Anadi Avidya. In a way, he's not blaming any of us. That is the very nature of our being. We are born into this human consciousness with our deeply contradictory predicament. We have the capacity for exploring the truth, and we have the normal proclivity to believe that it doesn't exist. Look at it, it's very powerful. We have a normal proclivity towards darkness, and we have the capacity for brightness and light. We have the inclination to dabble in the sense pleasures, and we have the aspirational potential to look beyond it, go beyond it. And that is why there's so much of spiritual sadhana, whatever is being mentioned, because both the things come naturally to us. With a bit of effort, when we clean up the mess, then it's possible. It's like that sand load, which is, is kind of left in mud, and then it's recovered. There's a carpenter, the story is told in the Vedanta classes. A piece of wood, the wife was looking for some firewood, and she picks up a piece of wood which was lying outside their courtyard, and it's kind of covered with mud and earth, and she cleans it up, and suddenly it smells lovely. And she realizes it's a sandalwood. If they make some furniture, it's going to get them a fortune. And she goes to her husband. He says, you have abandoned this piece of sandalwood. Oh, really? So if we start cleaning our consciousness, then the potential for looking beyond our sense experience becomes easy to realize, becomes easy to explore. That's what he's saying. Now, Putra Dhvani Shrutau, Putra Dhvani Shravana Lakshane Drishtante Tasya Pratibandhasya Hetuhu Karanam. Now, when he is listening to his son's voice, why can't he specifically identify his son's voice? He's explaining what is the karana. Samana viharo, bahuvihi saha pathanam iha drashtantike. Because his son is chanting along with others. Now, what is that samana? I had just taken from somewhere. It's very beautiful. What is that samana vihara? In Sankhya Karika, Sankhya Tattva Kaumudi, he gives that example. Samana viharat toya da vimuktan udagavindun. Now you have the droplets falling from the clouds and they fall into the ocean or a water body. The moment they fall into the water body, they mix with the water body, whether it is a pond or it's a well or whatever. Can you anymore isolate that particular water droplet? Is the water droplet not there? It is there. Can you isolate it? No, it is part of that ocean, that water body. You cannot anymore isolate it. And that is the nature of this whole thing. He's saying, therefore, jalasaya na pashyati. You cannot see that drop of water in the jalasaya. And then he's explaining, samana dharma sambandhana vastunam pruthaktvasya adarsanam. When you have samana dharmi, there are 20 boys wearing same school dress with equal batches and similar dharma. If you can get closer to them, you can see the facial features and you can isolate who is your son. But a bunch of boys, everybody is wearing the school dress and you're watching them doing parade, right? You have that march on 15th of August Independence Day, can you isolate who is your son? If he tells you this is my location, you can. Otherwise, you won't. He's saying that is what is samana vihara. Therefore, because of the similar attributes, it's very difficult to know. That's what he's trying to say. Saha patanam iha drashtantike, that is in Atma Tattva, vyamohika nibandhanam, vyamohanam viparita jnananam eka nibandhanam mukhya karanam. So you have a lot of faulty perceptions and they kind of all get mixed up. And, right here, the Atma Tattva is asti, bhati, iti, vyavahara, yogya, and yet you sometimes might say, no, I can't see it. Anadi utpatihi, anadi utpati rahita avidya. What is anadi utpati rahita? It has no beginning. Nobody gave birth to it. It's always there. Like this question is asked all the time in Vedanta. Where is the when, at what moment, what is the date of birth of the snake that you see in a rope? That snake has no date of birth. The moment there is a rope, the possibility for confusing as a snake is there. So far there is Brahman. The potential of it being confused as samsara is always there. Whatever is adhyarupita or adhyasita or superimposed, it has no beginning. It has no beginning. There is reality. It can be superimposed. What is the beginning? No. The moment you see, that happens. Then he's saying anadi utpati rahita vidya vakhyamana lakshana pratibandhasya hetu ityaha. So the reason as to why we are not being able to realize and fully accept the perceptibility, the evidence about the existence of Atma Tattva and its Parananda Rupata is because of Anadi Avidya, because slowly he's holding our hands and leading us towards the depths of Vedantic analysis. He's bringing in a new term called Anadi Avidya. Because if there is no Pratibandhaka, there is no ignorance, there is no absolute reason as to why we should be doing this Vedanta Satsang, because normally we should all be enlightened. If Atma Tattva is there, and obviously we should be able to see that, but we do not see that. God is there, it's omnipotent, omniscient. Why can't he love us? He's omnipotent. Why shouldn't he protect us? Why can't we see him? Why we need to run to temples or go to the caves or look for mountain tops? We want retreats. You know what is that? It's all about trying to decondition our minds who are kind of trapped in a limited set of references. We have to remove these limited coordinates to break open from this cage, from this shell of whatever we define as our life world. Then we can enter into the relatively undefined yet evident world of truth and blissfulness. With this, I stop here and we'll take it forward tomorrow. And thank you for joining. Let's do the Santi Mantras. Any questions? I can take maybe one or two. Any questions anybody has? Okay, so let's have the Santi Mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om. Thank you all. We'll again rejoin tomorrow 7:30.